I dreamt last night like never before. Images and pictures of events and times that seemed familiar but appeared very different. Different in the sense that I knew what they were and what they represented, but I didn't recognize them to look at them. I saw a vast expanse of pure white, untouched by anything. Every color in perfect balance and everything in what felt like a complete unified oneness. This place I could not see any more than I could feel. All my senses working together as one while remaining separate. This place felt warm and loving like no other I had ever experienced before. Then I heard laughter like that shared between close friends. 3 voices talking amongst themselves and laughing in a language that expressed both past tense and future tense at the same time, almost as if they had no sooner planned something than it had come into being and immediately accomplished what they had set it to do. I felt them smile and sensed them looking at me. "What would you like to know?" they asked. I moved closer, carefully and cautiously, even though my insides told me that I had nothing to fear. Fear, that was it. This place demanded a kind of fear that comes from admiration, awe, and respect. This place seemed to nurture at the same time it instilled a feeling of confidence. It was like I was everywhere all at once, and yet I could see and feel and know that I was only in one place inside this enormous completeness. I watched their shapes come out of the purity of the whiteness. It was as though they somehow reduced themselves to a perceptible image for my benefit, while still remaining their individual oneness with each other and their surroundings. I moved closer and asked them to repeat their question, even though I knew that I didn't need to say a thing for them to understand. "What would you like to know?" they asked. I felt a million questions run through my head, and wouldn't you know it, each one was answered with an image that I could feel more than I could see with my mind's eye. I had no real question, for any and all were answered before they could move from my brain to my mouth. Finally, I asked, "Is there as much to come as what has already been?" What the heck kind of question was that, I thought. "An excellent one," they answered. "But you already know right now you cannot know all that will be. For all that was will be no more, and that which is to come will be more than that which was." I nodded, knowing exactly what they meant, while my central reasoning center wanted to ask for more details. "In the fullness of what will be called time, you will know that which has already been and is to come, and yet is still to come anew." Then they sort of laughed between themselves, as though they were sharing some hidden thing or secret known only to them. "When time is complete, you too will share in our inexpressible joy, you and a vast multitude such as you are." "When will this happen?" "It has already happened." Then they pointed to a door that had always been there, but didn't show itself until it was necessary. I walked over to it and looked out to see a marvelous and wondrous city. There was no sun or any single source of light, no shadows or anything that could give any sort of dimensional perspective. Yet I could clearly see shapes and people, all perfectly lit. Everything was lit by a single light source that came from a central position, the door where I was standing. And yet it lit everything from all possible angles in perfect unity. Hence no shadows, but depth and dimension. "What is this place?" "This is my dwelling," they answered. "That where I am." I immediately fell to my face, weeping, knowing exactly where I was. But the largest of the figures picked me up and wiped away the tears forming in my eyes. "We'll have none of that any more." "But I'm not," I sobbed. "You are now," said the figure on the right. "I have made you spotless. Were you not cleansed, you would not be standing here." "But how can I—" The larger one spoke in a voice that sounded like a thunderous whisper. "I will do all that I please." The other figure seemed to bow, and I felt the desire to lay prostrate, which I did. He continued, "I have brought you here so that you can tell others who are too slow and unthinking to search me in my words." The figure on the left continued, "We have brought you here to show you what has been and will be yet again made anew." I rose from the floor and backed away from the door as it slowly sealed itself into the whiteness of the purity. "Here is all that was." The figure on the left lifted up a hand-like shape and substance and formed a tiny bubble of crystal air. This was all that you know and will soon not know. I looked closer at it, but couldn't tell whether I was actually moving closer to it or it was growing larger and more detailed. "What is it?" I asked. The figure on the right moved to my side and took my arm and walked me toward another door that started forming itself. This one was black with many white points of twinkling light. "This is my footstool." As he spoke, the door seemed to float and attach itself to the outside of the still increasing crystal bubble. By this time it had grown large enough to encompass the room, though the room had no real discernible dimensions. "And now we will leave this, our dwelling, and I will show you that which you already know." As we stepped inside the black speckled door, the other two said, "See you later, sonny child." This, I thought to myself, seemed so unlike them. I then felt it even more natural for them to move from a commanding presence to that of close friends when two sides of the same gold coin shot through my thinking. Then everything went black. I couldn't see anything. The figure with me was still there, but I could only hear him and sense his presence. There were no floors or walls or ceiling, and even though nothing appeared to be around me, I felt as though I could still maneuver about. Then, out of the blackness, I saw a single point of light, then another and another. Eventually, there were as many points of lights as there was blackness that surrounded them. Then it dawned on me. This looks like space. That is exactly where you are. When is it? What time are we in? Meaningless. What are you to show me? That which you know but have not seen, and that which will be when that which is no longer. Then I saw a lightning bolt streak by, headed toward the far reaches of space. It seemed to go a distance that, to my mind, would take light years to travel. We traversed the expanse in but one step, and came upon a beautiful golden silvery blue crystal. This is time to come that has already been. I reached out to take hold of this marble-sized crystal, but the figure said, "This is the footstool. You've touched it once. After that, judgment." I didn't fully understand him this time, but I knew that I eventually would. Then the marble grew to a size where I could see more detail, and wouldn't you know it, it was the planet Earth, but not like the one I remembered it looking like. "Observe and learn," the figure pointed to the far distance behind the ball. There was the same lightning bolt now heading towards us. "That is pride, sin, and rebellion." The bolt seemed to shrink as it approached. Then I watched it enter Earth's atmosphere and strike the ground, creating a large black stain. In time it will spread and destroy much of our perfection. The black stain moved across the Earth toward a pure white patch on one of the continents. They mixed and created a single putrid color that spread out and turned this golden silvery blue crystal to the Earth I now recognize. The stench of the stain hit me, and I quickly pulled my head back. The spread of sin and rebellion has caused a curse upon the Earth, and it has separated us from them. I knew he was talking about God and humankind. Then the Earth spun faster and became grayer with every turn. Time was going by. I saw the white door and a single beam of light gently descending to the Earth. Jesus' birth. Then the light rose back to the door with a greater brilliance and radiance. His ascension. Then the Earth became black, and once again the white door opened with the light descending yet again. This time it flew over the Earth, gathering billions of other points of light before going back. The rapture. The final time it descended, it was followed by billions of other streams of brighter lights. Jesus reigned for his millennium kingdom. Now the Earth returned back to the golden silvery glow. Then the door opened one last time and enveloped the planet and everything else I could see. When it did, it turned everything around me into a new kind of daylight. I could still see stars and everything, but somehow the blackness turned into a kind of blue sky, as though somehow the empty vacuum of space filled with the same kind of water-air combination that brings life to the Earth. It was like the vastness of the entire universe had become as close as the sky is from the Earth's surface. Like the sun and moon were just decorations floating in the air. Like the other planets were mere neighbors just down the street. I could sense that now the Earth was like a base camp for a great climb to even higher heights. just a starting point for something even greater and bigger than what it had already gone through. And on the earth, I could see the glow from the door, providing light for the whole universe, like it had become the center of everything in existence. Then the dream started to fade. Before it did, I could see a faint shape inside the white glow. That was the earth. It was the shape of a house that, now that the dream is fading from my consciousness, it seemed very much like a mansion, a city-sized house. At least that's what I could only remember it as, because it was at this point the figure left me without a word. Then I woke. Well, I must be off to work. I'll come back later and go over this entry.